Hello, and welcome to the Megan Taylor Creative Podcast, a show for entrepreneurs looking to grow their business with digital marketing. In this episode, I'll be talking about how to be productive as a small business owner. Let's get started. In this episode of the Megan Taylor Creative Podcast, I just wanted to take a bit of a break from talking about marketing in general, and I wanted to touch on a topic that is very near and dear to me, and that is organization. And anyone that knows me knows that I kind of preach organization and knows that I like to think that I'm very good at staying on top of things and managing my time properly and effectively. I think there's always some areas that I can improve on, but we'll kind of talk more about those later in the episode. And I also wanted to share my tips on how I really kind of knuckled down on my organization and my ability to prioritize tasks this year. It's been really important for me since I've taken on quite a few new clients over the past few months, and there's lots of things to remember. So I don't want to run the risk of forgetting about things that are actually quite important, but because they're so small, they're not necessarily on the forefront of my mind like a lot of the bigger projects that I work on. So it's just important to make sure that you have like a mental and physical note of all the tasks that you have to do as a business owner. But also, I wanted to talk about those times when you want to be productive, but you're not sure how to, when you've actually got a bit of free time to work on your business and to do all the things that we've currently spoken about in the Megan Taylor Creative Podcast, such as starting an email list or starting a blog or things like that. So I'll be sharing how I manage those days as well. And this is going to be like a really in-depth episode. I'm really excited about it. So as usual, let's just get straight into it. So the first tip that I have for being productive as a small business owner is to implement time blocking into your day. And time blocking can be done very differently depending on the person, but I find that the simpler you keep it, the more effective it is, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to help you actually get things done. But if you're looking at your calendar that you've time blocked and you're not sure what you're looking at, then that's obviously quite problematic. So I've only recently started trying to kind of time block my day, and I'm the sort of person where I don't necessarily need a visual cue. I can write it down or make a mental note of it in my head, and I know exactly how I want to spend my day. But recently I've noticed that there have been a lot of administration tasks that have been getting kind of in the way of periods of deep work and working for longer periods of time on more substantial projects and tasks that maybe require a bit more brain power than writing several emails to clients. So I think that time blocking is a great opportunity to help you look at your day in small chunks and think, okay, how much time do I actually have? And then what are the most important tasks that you need to complete that day? So the way I do it is I do it by category. So a big thing that I do, and a lot of what my day is spent on, is actually writing content. So I might actually set days aside if I know I've got a lot of deadlines coming up where I will actually just time block that entire day to write content. And I personally like doing that because it's a day where I can just get all the stuff done, all the big projects done. I can put music on. I don't have to worry about client meetings or anything like that. And then I know that that's just done. Even if the deadline is maybe next week or at the end of the week, I know that I don't have to worry about spreading the content out. I do sometimes spread the content out if it's quite a lot, because I find that sometimes if I'm not in a good mental place, for example, then actually sitting down and writing loads and loads of content is probably going to be more counterproductive than if I were just to spread it out. And the way I'll talk about how I kind of manage that and make sure that I'm keeping track on those deadlines later. But I think it's really a thing where you need to play it by ear and you need to understand kind of how you work, what kind of triggers you to be motivated, what your general work day days look like. My work days are very different. Some days I might not really have much client work at all, and in that case, I still want to be productive. Sometimes I give myself the day off, but if I want to be productive, then I will look at things that I've kind of said, okay, I want to do this for my business, and then I'll prioritize that. And then I will look at the day and I'll think, okay, so I need to spend this amount of time doing this task and then take a break, and then this amount of time doing this task. And I think that's one of the reasons why time blocking is so effective for a lot of people who maybe organization doesn't come as easily to them, because they can actually see where their breaks are. So it's almost like the reward at the end, and it serves as a visual cue that you can use to brain dump everything that's in your mind, and then you can see exactly what you need to do to make sure that the day is as productive as it could be. The next tip that I wanted to talk about is to have daily and weekly to-do lists. And I think if you're going to implement time blocking, you still need to have this approach to organization and managing your time, because with time blocking, a lot of the time it is just, like I said, I tend to categorize those time blocks. So I could just say marketing as a time block, for example. But what does that actually mean? I need to know the actual tasks that I want to work on. So for today, I've got record and edit the podcast, social media posts to upload, create a content strategy for the next 3 months. So those are like my priority tasks for today. And then anything else, I can put like little tasks on there, but if they don't get done, then I can just move them on to the next day, or as we're on Friday now, while I'm recording this, I can move them onto next week. And I think that's important. I think that you need to be able to have like a visual image of exactly all the tasks that you need to get done. But the important thing here is to actually break the tasks down into smaller tasks. So for example, I could just say release podcast in my daily to-do list, but that's quite a lot. And I know I have a workflow of how to do that now. So maybe it's not as important, but for the larger projects, you need to kind of not just say write website copy, for example. You might actually want to do some research, and then you might need to actually write the copy, but then you might need to edit it as well. And then you'll need to implement it into your website, and then you'll need to promote it or set up an ad for it. So as you can see, there's lots of different tasks that can actually be broken down from the bigger kind of top level tasks that you put in your head. And that's actually a more productive way of viewing a task, and it kind of takes the pressure off of you in the day when you're thinking, I've got to do this big project, but then you can actually look at it in bite-sized chunks and think, okay, so I actually just have to do these 3 things to get this task completed, rather than I've got to do this entire project, if that makes sense. My next top tip kind of leads nicely on from the last tip, and that is to actually prioritize tasks. And I've alluded to this already, so I won't go into too much detail about prioritizing tasks. But my approach to this is essentially to look at what actually needs to get done today, but then also look at basically the tasks that I know are going to contribute to my really important goals as well. So this really helps me to juggle both client work and also my own business and marketing projects that I'm currently working on. Obviously, client work is first and foremost. Without my clients, I wouldn't have a business, so I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing them. But there are times when I don't necessarily have client work either. So to make sure that I'm prioritizing stuff, I need to think about what the most important thing is for me to achieve my business goals. And a lot of the time, I'll actually kind of create like a mini deadline in my head, just because that's how I work better. So it's why the weekly podcast, I think I've managed to kind of keep it up for so long, is because I actually have like a deadline each week. I'm like, okay, this needs to get done by the end of the week each week. And it can go out on the weekend if it needs to. But as long as I actually record a podcast episode by Friday, then I can edit it on Friday, because Fridays are normally not that busy for me, as I've normally done most of the work that I need to do. And then if I get to release it closer to the afternoon, and great. If not, then it will just go out on Saturday or Sunday, and that's also fine. So yeah, yeah, when you're prioritizing your tasks, don't forget about what you want to work on. I think as small business owners, it's so easy for us to forget about our own kind of passion projects. But remember that these projects, if they're successful, are actually going to contribute to your business growth too. One thing that I still really want to work on, and I've kind of put on the back burner just because I did see a period of growth this year, was actually just implementing some sort of way for me to be able to earn some passive income. Because at some point, I don't necessarily want to be doing client work for my entire life. You know, I've got to think about if I want to have kids or when I want to retire. You know, I don't necessarily want to be waiting on my clients for my entire life. I enjoy doing client work to an extent, of course, but I have to think about the bigger picture and why I set up this business in the first place. And most of the time, the reason why people set up businesses is because they want to retire early, they want to be able to sell the business and then, you know, use that money to retire early, or create another business that they couldn't quite execute in that period of time. And then once they've sold that business, then they can use the profits from that to set up their dream business. So you just have to focus on those things. And if you're not a service-based business either, you can still implement the priority tasks. So if you're a product-based business and you know that you've got a launch coming up, then the workflow that you need to do to actually get a product out and online or install wherever you're based as a shop, and then you prioritize that each day. You think, right, what actually needs to be done to get this product into fruition, and what are the marketing campaigns that I need to do to make sure that I meet my goals, for example. And then once you kind of figure that out based on their time period, then you can prioritize. So, my last top tip is to actually set aside time for admin. And I am the worst at doing this because I will see an email from a client and I will immediately think I have to respond to that. But actually, I don't always have to respond to that. There are times where it's quite important and I need to action it immediately. But if there are no immediate actions, then you can flag that and then deal with it at a later time. And this is where blocking time specifically for admin comes in. So you want to make sure that obviously you're responding to admin, but if you think about it, a lot of big corporations, they will have a time limit on when they actually respond to their customers. So it might be 24 hours or it might be 48 hours. Set yourself like a deadline in your head of when you'd ideally like to respond to clients. Obviously, there's going to be circumstances where that's not possible, such as if you have a website crash or your email server's down, or you've just got personal things going on where you have to take a little bit of time out. But generally, have that deadline in your head of when you'd actually like to respond to that. And then you spend an hour or so every day responding to the emails that aren't urgent. So this is just good for two reasons. It's good because it makes your business look responsive and it gives you a little bit of credibility and also helps to build trust. But also it's good for you because you don't feel stressed out by having a huge inbox. I hate having unread emails. It really bothers me. Sometimes I just have to leave them because I'm in the middle of doing a project that has a deadline, like the same day deadline kind of situation, and I just have to ignore every correspondence that's coming my way until I've got that done. And I find that very difficult. But just think, okay, I will respond to this when all my other priorities are done, and that's not a priority right now. And maybe have a system where you can identify, you know, keywords, or if you know certain clients, for example, they often assign you tasks and you know you need to respond to that, or you have any questions that are important, then I think that it's important to have a system to be able to manage your inbox effectively. I mean, this could be a whole episode in itself, but I think that the two key points to take away from here is, one, make sure that you just set aside time to respond to your emails, and to make sure that you have a system so that you know which emails to respond to and which emails can wait for when you actually eventually sit down and you complete your admin tasks. So yeah, that's it. That's everything today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode, and I hope that you can approach your work days a little bit differently and you can get more stuff done. The final note that I wanted to leave you with is that whilst organization and productivity are two really important elements and facets that you need to have as a business owner, you also need to play it by ear sometimes. And if you're not feeling working that day, if you're feeling really ill or just mentally drained and you know that you're not going to be able to deliver your best work, listen to your body and take that break. I don't think that it's good for us to work ourselves to the bone, and that's when burnout can happen, when you feel like every task you do is a chore, where you just feel like you're just working for the sake of working. Don't do that. Work efficiently, work smart, and these tips should help you to actually have a productive day but not feel guilty for not necessarily completing everything that you wanted to do, because they might just not be that important or they're not a priority right now. So yeah, I really hope that this episode helped you to find that balance. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and share on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's where you're listening from. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, we'd really appreciate it if you left any reviews or if you followed us so that you can be notified every time there's a new episode. And as always, I will speak to you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.